There's no place like home. There's no place.
Home.
Our house is a very, very, very fine house with 2 cats in the yard. Life used to be so hard. Now everything is easy 'cause of you.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
Hey, I'm Eric Stromer.
And we love to help improve your home and improve your life. But, you know, it's that time of year when we like to, we bring out the ghosts because it's time to decorate for the Halloween, you know, the decorative kind. We turn our homes into fun, scary.
Yeah, I don't know if we bring them. I don't know if we bring them out as much as they show up. Why? Because it's this time of the year and they're everywhere.
So what if it wasn't just Halloween? What if it was? Because, you know, if you do believe in spooks, it isn't just because of a holiday. It's because they don't know the holiday. It's all the time. And let me just tell you my first-hand experience with what we think was a haunted home. It was my childhood home in Southern California. Yeah. And my dad, as he was getting up there in years, had caregivers round the clock. And these caregivers, along with my dad, thought that they saw doors opening.
No.
And... Come on.
No, I'm serious. I'm getting kind of
and
scared.
Like an impression on a bed where you would think that someone was sitting there. And then my dad started talking to what he thought he saw was an old friend. And things are going on. I'm like, you know, whatever, you know. These.
So you're thinking maybe your dad is just kind of seeing things.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, something's, you know, nutty. But then later we decided, I ended up meeting a paranormal researcher. And so we had her come to the home just to check it out. And so my husband and this researcher and myself, we were there. We even had a camera. We walked through room to room to room, and she's saying, you know, this area seems like it's a passageway. It seems like things are coming and going. Really? Come on. But this is my childhood home.
Sure.
You know, I'm not believing this. But then we go to this one area in our family room where she goes, you know, this is a very dark spot. Something really bad is going on. And at that moment, boom.
No.
All the power in the house went out. Coincidence? Or not.
You tell me.
So, I don't know. So, it's a topic that we love to cover every year because for a lot of people, having a haunted home is real.
I have to tell you now, I had an experience, a good friend of mine.
Right.
He had a big family home down in the South, right? And he was cleaning his car with his friend, right? They were out in their driveway. And all of a sudden he heard his cleaning lady, the family person that was helping clean the house, run out screaming. The door was flung wide open. Ah! And she's running out, and they look, and they run to the house. They go inside, and in the kitchen, all the cabinet doors had been flung open, and all the dishes had come off the shelves and on the floor of the kitchen.
And it wasn't an earthquake.
And he said, like, I'm like the most, you know, I have no belief in any of this. And he said he was terrified.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
So...
Oh my God! I just scared myself so much.
We wanted to. We love to explore this topic because this is a real thing for a lot of people. I mean, at least 60% of us believe in ghosts, and let's talk to somebody who not only believes in it but has lived it. She actually is a sister of a Home Wizards employee. Her name is Diana Campbell.
Diana,
and she had some very close encounters. Not only she, but her mom and her dad, with a variety of ghosts. So, Diana, thanks for being here with us. Hi, Diana.
Hi, how are you?
So take us back. Take us back to the beginning, because this happened when you were in high school in Ohio, and you were sharing with me that you decided to have a seance with some high school friends, and you're in the basement of your house?
Okay, wait a minute. First of all, Diana, having a seance is clearly going to bring stuff to you, but go ahead.
Yeah. So tell us how it all began.
Well, it was about 5 years ago, and we all decided to do that seance, and I guess seances have a very clear opening, calling, and closing, but none of my friends or I ever believed in any of that stuff, so we were just kind of doing it for fun, and they're really long processes, so we got through the opening and the calling, and nothing really happened, so sorry, I got a big truck passing me here. And nothing really happened, and so we decided to stop, and we're just like, well, whatever, this wasn't really worth our time, and didn't ever perform the closing. And in my opinion, I think that's what started everything that happened, because my Aunt Carla, who you'll be talking to in a bit, told us that
it created like a portal of some kind. It created like a
you opened the door.
Open the door, yeah. So talk about it, because this wasn't just you who saw this. Later, it was your mom who saw things that were described the exact same way, but at different times and without you guys comparing notes. So talk about this guy, this ghost that you later named George.
Oh no, she's gone back. She's gone back to the dark side. Oh no.
No. Hi, sorry. Yes, so my mom and my dad started seeing things too. It took my dad a lot longer. But I think that my mom would probably be more perceptive to that kind of thing anyway.
And your mom and dad are very conservative, both lawyers, and they typically wouldn't believe in this kind of thing, and you didn't either. But you saw, what, a yellow creature, a yellow man?
Yes, it was actually a yellow naked man, to be exact, walking past my mom's bathroom when I was just sitting there on the phone, like putting on makeup to go out, and I was home alone, and so I was definitely pretty freaked out. And when my family came home, I ran downstairs to tell everybody, and obviously no one believed me because they're all pretty
generally
people.
Generally, when you're hyperventilating and saying there's a yellow naked man in my bathroom to your parents, it's not gonna be taken with much seriousness.
No, and that was a few hours later. So at that point, there was nothing to show for it. But my mom didn't say anything while I was freaking out about it. And later, a few days later that evening, I can't remember, but she brought me upstairs and was like, "Is this where he was walking?" And asked about it and was really interested. And I was like, "Why?" She told me that she had seen the same thing too, and just had been too scared to tell anyone. She didn't want to seem crazy.
And describe what it looked like. It's a yellow man, but it was like not a misty creature that you see in the movies or shows. It was solid.
It actually was. I mean, it was solid, but it almost had a glow. I knew it wasn't a real person. I wasn't. My mom thought that it was, but she had been in the shower, and I think maybe it didn't see as well as I did. I knew it wasn't real, and I don't know why it didn't scare me more, but it didn't have a scary feeling to me. So I definitely wasn't frightened by that.
All right, well, hold that thought, Diana, because we have more to share with your story. I mean, this is the real first-hand experience of an employee's childhood home. This is Diana, the sister of our employee, Nick.
That's the yellow naked man.
There's a lot of credibility, I think, to this family because they're serious, good Midwestern folks, and we're going to take it to the next step. I mean, you see it in the movies and the TV shows, but what if, in the case of Diana Campbell and her family, your home is haunted? You're listening to Home Wizards. Eric Stromer, Cindy Dole. Home Wizards continues.
I see dead people walking around like regular people.
I don't see anything. Are you sure they're there?
They're everywhere.
Welcome back to a special Home Wizards. The whole idea, maybe your home is haunted.
Yeah, this might be the scariest Home Wizards we've ever done.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it doesn't have to be scary. I mean, ghosts can be friendly, too.
Yeah, and according to our caller, it's a nice yellow man who's naked walking around the house. So that's not actually scary.
But things go from nice to not so nice.
Oh, no.
Eric Stromer, Cindy Dole, where we love to improve your home and improve your life, and maybe that means getting rid of some ghosts. Diana Campbell is with us. And let me just tell you how I met Diana. She's joining us by phone. But her brother works with us at Home Wizards, and I was just sharing with him, hey, we're gearing up for this annual show about Is Your Home is Haunted? And he says, Cindy, you wouldn't believe what happened in our home. And this is as he's about to leave. I'm like, wait a minute, Nick, this is important. We got to talk to your sister. So, Diana, thanks for hanging out with us. And so set the stage again. So this is this yellow man that you later name as George, as a ghost that you're seeing in your home. How did you know? I mean, did you know this guy?
No, we just knew he was friendly, though, and we thought, actually, one of my friends, whenever she was around, he would kind of do something like we'd hear someone run up the stairs or someone hush at us upstairs or talk, and so Annie named him George. My friend Annie thought it was a funny name for him since he didn't feel scary to anyone, really. So, I mean, a lot of things started happening, George started coming into our lives a lot more and gave us a lot of laughs.
But this was going on for about a year and a half. That's a long time, Eric, isn't it?
And my mom was very aware of him. I don't think my dad had ever seen him at that point. And I kind of wonder if we had more than just one ghost, because George definitely had a certain feeling. And I know I told you when we spoke last that one time I was sleeping and my dog woke up all of a sudden and ran. And I looked over, and then something slammed me on the side of my head, and was I looked up, and it was this man. I could see it so vividly, in a blue polo with he was bald, and he was kind of overweight, and he was just hurry. And then I freaked out and ran into my parents' room, and it was gone. I never saw that again. But it was pretty scary to me that I could actually feel them. I never knew that would happen. I mean, obviously this was all really new to me, but I definitely wouldn't have imagined that they actually were able to touch things.
And your dog was there. I'm always curious because I have dogs, and so does Eric. I mean, was the dog perceptive to this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Taylor, my dog, was definitely perceptive to everything that was going on. Sometimes she would just watch, she and our cat would just kind of look together at things, and I think they saw more than we did, for sure.
So wait, the guy in the blue polo shirt hit you and said hurry, and then
yeah,
and you just go, and how do you hold that energy in your body once that happens? You run in and say to your parents, "A guy in a blue polo shirt just hit me, Mom!" And then she goes, "I know, honey, I know. It's too. I'm glad it's not the George guy, at least. Well, how do you handle all that?"
I'm pretty sure at that point we still just didn't feel scared, so it wasn't much to handle. I mean, we just kind of, every time something would happen, I would tell my friends about it. My parents would try to keep me from telling everyone else, because they didn't want people to think we were crazy.
So it becomes like a family secret, sort of, right?
In fact, and then your parents even said, don't tell anybody, right?
Right. Yeah, especially in the neighborhood, just because, I mean, they didn't want my dad's clients to think he was insane or his family was insane. Right.
So that you're growing up in Ohio, right? And was it an old house? I mean, is you think that attracted? Yeah.
It wasn't extremely. Our older house our house before this one we never felt anything weird, and that was the first house ever built in the town, like the original farmhouse. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of odd that it would happen at this house. But,
so now it goes to not only seeing George and this guy in the blue shirt, but then talk about some of the other sensations. You heard things, and so did your dad.
Yeah. Well, I think, we definitely heard a lot. Do you mean once it got a little different, or earlier on the sort of type of things that showed us he was around? Because there's tons of things like that. Like my best friend Annie and I were talking to one of my friends, telling her all about George, and she didn't really believe in it. And we're like, just wait, he'll show you, and kind of laughing it off. And then literally 30 seconds later, there was a glass in the middle of our table that just shattered into 3 pieces, and no one touched it. And just talking about that gives me chills, just looking back. And I know when they talk about it, they get a lot more scared than I do. But that was probably the most obvious example to me of them proving themselves.
It was a glass just sitting there, like a drinking glass. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And
yeah,
it
like a tall drinking glass.
Just exploded in front of your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then would it keep your friends from wanting to come hang out at the house, or would they just all laugh it off and continue to come?
Well, there was one room in particular where George, as we called him, slept, and no one would sleep there because that's a guest bedroom. Well, it's Nick's room, actually, my brother, but he hasn't lived there in so long that it's a guest bedroom, and you could actually almost see him sit there at nighttime sometimes, like on the bed if the door was open, because it's right next to the kitchen, and there would be an indent on the bed where he would sit. And so none of my friends would sleep in there. If I was like, oh, you could sleep in the guest room, they wouldn't.
And didn't the bed always leave like an imprint, as if somebody had was still sitting there?
Right.
Yeah, and you could see it. And actually, I don't know if you want me to go into getting a little bit different feeling, but that room always kind of is the only room that kind of creeped me out, just because I always studied in the kitchen, and it wasn't fun to look in there and see something sitting there.
And was that the room where you guys did the seance, or where did you do the seance in the house?
We did the seance in the basement, and actually when my Aunt Carla cleared the house, she said that the portal or whatever was in the living room, but I think that it just kind of moved on. I think it kind of just spread. from there.
And we'll get to Carla, who is the aunt,
yeah,
the aunt that helped to get rid of the
more.
ghost. We'll talk to her in the next segment. But help us now understand. So you had these experiences with at least two different spirits or apparitions or whatever you want to call them. And so you saw them, you heard them, and you felt them. And then beyond that, I mean, it started to get kind of violent. And here you are, you're a lacrosse player. So talk about that. You were practicing in the backyard, and what happened?
Yeah, well, I've played lacrosse for about 13 years. I've played in a lot of good travel teams. Definitely not a bad player. And I kept throwing to my pitchback, which is like a net that it bounces back to your net, to your stick. And I kept throwing it back to my upper left side, and it kept coming back right at my face. And I'd catch it, and that happened about 5 times. And I was just so confused because I wasn't throwing it there, and it seemed like it was going to my stick until about 2 seconds before. And so the 6th time that it happened, or about 6 or about time, I tried to catch it right there, and I swear it went into my net, and then it just zoomed right to my face. And my nose shattered. I mean, I had to get reconstructive surgery to get it fixed, but that was pretty terrifying.
So basically a ghost broke her nose.
So the contention is that the ghost was changing the direction of the ball, and then it slammed into your nose.
Right. And that was the first week where it ever felt scary and where it didn't feel like a friendly ghost. Like, George seemed like he was almost just watching over us. It definitely didn't feel that way anymore. And the reason that all started, I think, is that I was in the kitchen one evening studying, and obviously that bedroom scared me a little bit, so I went in and I just closed the door to the bedroom where we always saw George sleep, and I was just like, "Good night, George, don't want to bother you while I'm studying," and I was alone down there. And since then I've done readings and stuff that addressing ghosts when you're alone is like a way to make them know that they can be seen. And I don't really understand how it works, but I think that triggered other ghosts to realize they could be seen in their home. And so after that, we started, literally 20 minutes after that happened, we started having a ton of problems, really just scary and not friendly problems.
And you were sleeping one time, and you kind of half woke up and saw now like a black blob, like a misty, that sounds really creepy.
Yeah, that same night, actually, I was just asleep and already kind of freaked out just from the evening events that night. And there was just a black apparition. It was like a blob. It didn't look like a human figure like I'd seen before, and it wasn't touching the ground, and it just felt really scary. I was just terrified, and I fell in and out of sleep, and I just had a really strange dream, and it was the first time that I felt as if I wasn't in control of my thoughts, and I don't know how to explain that at all. But I've read a lot of people who have had similar experiences since that's happened to me, and it was definitely religious based and a lot of scary symbols and pictures.
Intense. Well, when we come back, I mean, the good news is that Diana's mom and dad believed her because they not only saw things, but they were worried just for the house. And they happened to have an aunt who is very spiritual, and it came time to, call Carla, the shaman. And so we're going to find out, Carla's going to join us on how she, from long distance, was able to cleanse this childhood home of Diana, the sister of our employee Nick, their childhood home in Ohio, of multiple ghosts.
And so by phone, she could phone it
by
in.
phone, long distance, she was able to communicate
and get
all this out. So what if in the house where you're living, there's some really creepy things going on? How do you know that you're not just losing your mind, that it's for real? Because it is for a lot of people. And then who do you call? And isn't it convenient to have an aunt who's a shaman?
You know
Eric
it.
Stromer, Cindy Dole, you're listening to Home Wizards. Welcome back. You're listening to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
Hey, I'm Eric Stromer.
And every year we look at, because it is that time of year, what if your home is haunted? And believe you me, as I was getting ready for the show, last night I started to feel maybe my home was haunted. You convince yourself.
That's what happens. You start thinking about things. I see it in my kids, right? My 14-year-old will see a scary movie, and then all of a sudden he starts to talk about, oh man, I was outside going to the the shed, and I've thought about this creepy guy
See?
showing up with an axe. Well, what movie did you just watch?
Right.
The creepy guy with the axe movie. But then you wonder, if none of that media influence was there, would you still have these sensations and feelings?
And that's where our guests come in right now.
There
Because
you go.
Diana Campbell grew up in a home in Ohio, and we've been talking about her experiences that not only she saw and heard and felt, but also her mom and dad witnessed these things different times of the day, different times of the night, not even, sharing the stories together independently. All could say, this is the same thing that I saw. So Diana Campbell, thanks for sharing your story with us in Ohio.
Hi.
And it got to the point where your mom and your dad said, we got to get some help because it was really scary, right?
Yeah. Well, when my dad started to hear things like doorbells ringing when they hadn't and people talking, that's when we decided to do something.
And wasn't a radio coming on, a radio that almost sounded like it was World War II or something like this?
Yeah. There was a really scary, all I could describe it as a Stalin voice, like booming from that bedroom again where we always saw that ghost. And, I ran upstairs and was like, Dad, something is coming on and off, and it's really scaring me. And he was like, I heard that too. I thought it was you talking. And he came down, nothing was in the room, and so we went back to bed, and then it started happening again, and it's pretty terrifying. That was definitely a really scary feeling from that voice.
That would actually freak me out so much that I would probably move.
Well, what would freak you out? What part?
Just the whole idea of stuff showing up that wasn't there before out in the middle of the night.
So they're seeing...
Because I get scared when Jack, my cat, runs across the bed. Oh, no!
You're startled.
But then walking into a room and seeing,
seeing
some
the outline
apparition.
Of,
oh,
yeah.
my
Or
goodness.
I think the bit about the glass in the kitchen just exploding on its own.
But you said there was no shards of glass. What did you say again?
There were no shards. It was just 3 even pieces, almost like someone had... I don't know
dust.
how you would break a glass like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, it got to the point where Mom and Dad, Diana's mom and dad, said, we need to call somebody, and they happen to have a relative who is very intuitive. She is a shaman, and Carla Neske is her name. She's joining us now. Carla, tell us, when you got the phone call from Diana's mom and dad, a part of your family, what did you hear? What did they tell you?
Hi. Well, what I heard was that Diana had been experiencing some kind of paranormal activity, and that she was concerned about it, and that they were hearing things, and that there were disturbances in the house. And I just sort of said, okay, well, I'll fix it. That's okay, whatever it is, let's just go see what it is. And so I did my work where I go into a, kind of a trance-like state and make my spirit go to the house and see what's happening there. And I saw one big guy who seemed to have come down from another house from up the hill, and he had sort of taken up residence, so we helped him move on.
Was that the naked yellow man guy or the
George?
blue shirt polo guy, or neither of those?
I can't really remember. It's difficult for me to remember cases because I'm in a trance when I speak to these spirits. But
by the way, I spent my 20s in a trance, so I totally relate.
Oh yeah, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. So, but this is a place where you grew up in Ohio too, and you say because it is so filled with old spirits. I mean, you believed it from the beginning because of the neighborhood, the history of the town.
Yes, they live in Clifton, which is one of the old neighborhoods of Cincinnati, and they have gas lights still, and the house is just fantastic, and it's surrounded by other really fantastic houses. And I lived in Clifton for a few years after I got out of graduate school, and I really enjoyed it. And I know that it's just steeped with old ghosts, absolutely steeped with old ghosts. So it didn't surprise me that there was somebody who had decided to pop up.
Mm-hmm. And so did you then, because you were living in Arizona while they're in Ohio, and you're doing this remotely by the phone, I guess? How does that all work?
Well, it works the same way ghosts work. I can move myself out of my physical form and go to the place where the client is, in this case, the house, and meet the spirits who are there. And some of the spirits who are there are like what we call, the technical term for this person is a lost wandering soul. It's somebody who died and whose spirit didn't cross over into heaven.
why don't they cross over into heaven? What's keeping them from doing that?
Well, sometimes they die suddenly and they didn't know they were dead. Sometimes they die from violence, and they're so angry and so upset that they don't see the light and they don't follow the angels. Those are the two really common ways. And sometimes they just don't want to leave the people that they're leaving behind. Like a child may not want to leave mother, or a mother may not want to leave their children.
Mm-hmm.
So those are and when you hear of ghost stories, you often hear of somebody wandering the halls looking for her lost lover, or, that kind of thing.
But what about Diana's getting injured by a ghost? I mean, that seems really creepy that she had her nose broken.
That is really creepy and really, really extreme. And now, Diana, tell me again how this ghost got entry?
You mean how my nose got hurt, or?
Well, no. How did you did a seance or something?
Yes. Well, we did a seance. My friends and I had a year before that, but it didn't get scary until about a week before we called you.
But wait. How do you? So you're just sitting around with a bunch of your teenage friends saying, "Let's summon some spirits." That's generally going to be a little bit of a problem, I think. How do you do that? First of all, what do you do?
Well, I don't advise anyone to do it, but we just Googled it. Google is great. And every website we went to said, don't try this unless you're experienced. Really don't. And it was a really long process that we followed, and we definitely put a lot of effort into it. And I feel really dumb looking back. But at the time, I just didn't think that stuff. I've always believed in stuff like that, but not to the point where I actually thought, if we didn't close, there's an opening, a calling, and a closing, I guess, and we didn't do the closing.
And Carla, you would advise against this, right? Not good to do.
Absolutely against it. Totally against it. Yes, unless you know exactly what you're doing and you have a good purpose for it.
Mm-hmm. And so as you were then remotely talking to Diana and also maybe the mom and dad, what was the dialogue? What were you all saying? Were you all participating together, or were they out of the house and you were doing this on your own, dealing with these spirits?
I was doing it on my own. In fact, what happened is Diana's mother, Janet, called me and said, Carla, we've got problems here, and could you help? And in the past, I'd helped them talk to their dogs when their dogs were sick or when their dogs were crossing over. And I said, sure, love to help. And I didn't realize how extreme the situation had become, which is probably good, because I just went and did my business, met the guy, found out why he was unhappy and what his problem was.
And what was it?
Well, I can't recall. That's my biggest problem. I can't recall. But and in a situation where it was safe to do it, I would journey to the guy again and say, tell me again why you were stuck. But in this case, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to know him again.
But Diana, you remember, because you remember what you were told. Go ahead.
Carla, am I right that there were because I listened to the tape not long ago, that there were a lot of ghosts, right? Or spirits? I thought there were about 12 or so different people that you talked to. And
wasn't them like maybe the late husband of a neighbor or something? Maybe. I can't recall. Yeah. So remotely, you then managed to tell all these spirits it's time to go. And so, Diana, then you instantly felt that your home was okay and you weren't scared anymore.
Yeah, honestly, my mom and I, the next day, woke up and we were like, the house actually just feels lighter. And I guess it makes sense, because if you're living with, a bunch of someone alive who had a ton of bad energy, you're obviously going to feed off that. So it really wasn't any different, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
And then have you carried any of these folks to college with? There's that naked yellow dude isn't in the room with you now, is he?
Thankfully not. So no, I've never had any experiences since then.
And you're not afraid to go back and see your folks in Ohio, right? You go back and visit?
No, not at all.
And they're still in the same house?
Yeah, and I lived there for a year and a half after that, and still felt totally fine.
And then what about the creepy guest room?
Well, but isn't the feeling that some of the ghosts might have gone to the neighbor's place?
I'm not sure. I think Carla might have made a joke about that to my mom, so maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Way to go, Carla! Way to just send them all to the neighbors, like when you kill the rats and they go to the other house.
All the rats leave your ivy and go to the neighbor.
It's terrible.
Oh my gosh. Well, so Carla, would you say that now that Diana's home is now cleansed and it's safe?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I put a protection around it so that if she'd opened up a channel, there's channels of ghosts where a whole bunch of people may be congregated together. Ghosts may be congregated sort of in a clump, and they'll move in a clump. And so when one sees a place to go, the others go with them.
Mm-hmm.
So typically you don't find just one ghost, you'll find a lot. And so crossing them over means bringing them all into one place and letting them all know you're going to be safe. You're finally going to get to meet those people that you love. You're going to get to see your parents and those people that you love, and don't you want to go home?
Good.
Yes, yes.
Well, Carla, stick around. Diana Campbell, thanks for sharing your story with us, and glad that you aren't scared anymore and that your home is safe. And thanks for sharing this whole story with us. And Carla, we want to know more about what if rest of us feel that there's some creepy things happening in the place we call home, whether it's an apartment or a house. I mean, it's unsettling. We're not just imagining things, right? Eric Stromer, Cindy Dole, what if your place is haunted? You're listening to Home Wizards.
They pretend to terrorize. Grim green ghosts come out to socialize.
Welcome back. You're listening to Home Wizards, where we love to improve your home and improve your life. I'm Cindy Dole.
Hey, I'm Eric Stromer, guys.
And we're talking with Carla Neske, who is a shaman, and her job is to basically go into homes, go into places, or maybe even remotely get into these spaces and cleanse them of spirits who basically haven't moved on. What if your home is haunted? What if you have kind of those sensations of something going on? Carla has been there and done that. Carla, do you ever get spooked by ghosts or spirits?
Yes.
Yes, you do. You do, really?
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Because when a spirit is strong enough that they can physically manifest and do stuff in the physical realm, like break glasses or break Diana's nose, you've got a problem. Because one of the things that they're capable of doing is starting fires and burning your house down. And that is very real, and you have to be really cautious about that.
And so, what are some of the signs that you could look for in your own experience where you might be you could head it off before it gets too late, for example, of hauntings?
The initial signs are that you can smell it, feel it, you can sense the sort of creepy feeling in the air. You might see things move. You might hear lights going on and off is a really common one.
Hey, there's a connection to electricity, isn't there?
There is, absolutely, because it's an energy thing. They can change the form of energy.
So in my own case, in my childhood home, we had I guess you'd say kind of a paranormal researcher join me, and we walked from room to room, and we thought maybe something had been going on. My dad and his caregivers thought that something was going on, and instantly as we were in this one space where the researcher said, this is a really dark space, the power throughout the home went out. Would you say that is related, or is that just a coincidence?
Oh, that's totally related. Absolutely related. Yes.
And then Carla, what was the first time when you experienced this kind of stuff in your own life? How did you know that this was something that you were hooked into?
Well, as far as being able to connect to spirit, I think I learned that pretty early on, but I started studying it in the mid-'80s when I lived in Cincinnati. So I've been studying and working with spirit for a long, long time. But I'll tell you a story about a place I lived in Oregon. I bought a house in the country, and there were 3 to 5 acre pieces, and my house had houses around its perimeter. And my next door neighbor's house caught fire, and so it burnt to the ground because we were in the country. And I went into the world of spirits to find out why that had happened. Clearly there was an electrical fire, but why did that happen? And I met this Native American young man who was very, very, very angry, and he was angry over the white people having moved into his area, and he was angry about a broken relationship. And he had died young, and he had died angry, and he was still angry, and it was 100 years later. And he wanted to get back at people.
He wanted revenge.
He wanted revenge, and he didn't really care about whom. He was just a young, stupid punk.
Huh.
So
so these were electrical fires, and you were able to figure out that there was a connection somehow?
Well, what I do is I go into that trance-like state, and I work with compassionate spirit, and I say, introduce me to why this happened. What happened here? And they said, well, let me introduce you to him. I met this guy. And what I did is I worked with my compassionate beings to sort of contain him, the same way you might have a policeman come and capture an arsonist. And we took him back across the veil into the land of the spirits where his parents were, and we gave him back to his parents. We said, this young man belongs in heaven with you. He's done this bad thing, and you need to keep him. They were very embarrassed, his parents. And they took him back, and they apologized. Well, I don't know, 6 months later, a year later, the next house down the way burned down.
That's pretty creepy.
So wait, what'd you do? So what happened?
So I crossed him back over again, and I said, now this time you stay. And apparently I wasn't very effective at getting him to stay. About a year later, another house caught fire. Same thing. Move him back over. This time we really mean it. You need to be rehabilitated. There will be enough of this. And so then I left the neighborhood, and 6 months after I left the neighborhood, guess whose house caught fire?
No way.
Your house?
Yep. The house I live in burnt up.
And so what happened then?
And what did the fire investigators say? Come on.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I did then? Nothing.
Yeah.
I said, okay, that's it. I'm not in the neighborhood anymore. Done. Somebody else can deal with it.
So when we do, I mean, that sounds pretty extreme, your house catching fire and burning down. But for those of us who maybe it isn't quite at that level, like Eric was saying, how do we know just early on maybe we are just sensing in the corner of our eye that we saw something, or we're feeling a cold spot in our home? How do we know we're not just imagining things? And then what do we do about those feelings?
Well, the first thing is your imagination almost always has roots in something triggering it. And we use our imagination as the facility to be able to see spirit. So we're never making it up. When spirit is influencing our imagination, trust that that is what is happening.
Okay, that's a bad sign, because I spent a lot of time in that world walking around my house at night. So I'm sensing this stuff, and I go, "Oh no, that's not it, Eric. Stop it. Just put
You're
the dog
blowing
out.
it off.
Yeah, blowing it off. Put the dog out. It's fine. I didn't really see a guy with a meat cleaver."
Okay, well then, along with those scary spirits are spirits who protect you, your guardian angels.
Yeah,
they're just as real. And everybody has them.
So how do we react to the good ones and the bad ones? Do we pretend that we don't see them? Do we acknowledge them and just head them on with confidence? You're not the boss of me. Or, what seems to work?
You call in the good ones, and then you do exactly what you just said. You are not the boss of me. And you have the good ones escort the bad ones out. You have the good ones take care of the bad ones. You yourself don't have to do it. You get the good ones to take care of the bad. The Catholics, they've got a great advantage because St. Michael is very powerful in helping in this way. So if you have any proclivity to the saint, call in St. Michael. And call in your guardian angels. I don't know who you are. I know you're there. I believe in you. I've never met you, but please, right now would be a good time for my guardian angel to come, figure out who this guy is, and help him. Get him out of here, take him to give him what he needs.
Mm-hmm. So have confidence, basically.
It's basically like daycare. It's the same thing. You got your good ones and
it's
your
like
bad
any
ones.
relationship. It's like, come on. And I always wonder, can these spirits read our minds? Do they know that we're afraid?
They know you're afraid, but I would not say they can read your mind. They generally tend to be kind of obtuse. Okay. They feel your fear. They feel the energy.
Well, just like your dog can feel your fear, right? So can the...
Yeah, dogs are smarter than these spirits.
Uh-huh.
If they were that smart, they would have crossed over.
So if our dog all of a sudden, acts up, and like Hazel or my Bailey or Abby, they start to like bark at nothing, then we should trust that there's something going on.
There is something going on, yeah.
Okay.
And it may have nothing to do with you. It may be dog-to-dog spirit activity.
How do we get a hold of you? You have a website. If we want to find a shaman like you, because a shaman can help cleanse our home, what is your website?
It's called spirithealer.com.
Okay. Spirithealer.com.
And I work all over the world.
Wait, spirits, plural?
Spirit.
Singular.
Oh, spirit. Okay,
Spirithealer.com. And you've seen it and you believe it. And for those of us who are afraid that we're going to be made fun of, don't, right?
Right. Don't even worry about being made fun of. I mean, we're all spirits.
Yeah.
Every one of us is a spirit. Some of us have the fortune of being in bodies. Most spirits don't.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Carla, for sharing your story and how we can be confident and say to these ghosts, you're not the boss of me.
No, get out.
Get out.
Get out. You know, the show that we do, you know, you got your plumbers, you got your people that eradicate pests, and now we got spirit healers to get rid of ghosts.
Eric Stromer, Cindy Dole, you're listening to Home Wizards.